All right, what is up, everybody? I would like to welcome you all back to the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast. This is the show where we talk about how we can do hard things better through both mental and physical fitness. And I would like to introduce our guest today. I would like to welcome Ben Albert to the show.
What's happening? How
Oh,
do I look? I'm probably the least physical fit person you've ever had. I just hired a trainer less than a year ago.
that's all we need. The fact that you're actually doing something is probably a lot more than a lot of other people.
Fair
So,
enough. Fair
so
enough.
that counts. That counts. And that's actually so Ben, I'm happy you mentioned that because we had a really cool conversation a little while ago about like looking the part. And I that was something that was like I've always kind of had that in the back of my mind when it comes to like personal development or whether it's mental fitness, physical fitness, growing a business, looking strong and in fit and a fit person probably has some longevity results to it when it comes to your success. So that's something that wouldn't mind diving into a little bit later. But first,
Yeah.
before we kind of get into it, you're the owner of Balbert Marketing. And I have to ask, is there any correlation between your actual name and the term Balbert?
Yeah, it's Ben Albert. It's Balbert Marketing.
Yeah, I
B
like I,
B
I like that.
B Albert. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because when I first read it, I was like, there's definitely a connection there.
Yeah.
Co-founded the Grow Getters monthly networking events, which, as I mentioned, right, you kind of helped me get out of my shell a little bit with feeling comfortable at some of those networking events. It was something that I've,
Awesome.
yeah, I've never. I'm actually doing one tomorrow, a fit in-person one, and I've done a couple before, but yours was it was virtual. It was a little bit easier to kind of get involved with. So I'm grateful that you kind of gave me that opportunity to do that. So real quick, what's the easiest way for people to jump into those events?
Yeah, growgettersonly.com. Grow GROW getters like a go-getter. GTTERS.com. Or honestly, just ping me, send me a DM,
Mhm.
and I'll give you a personal invitation.
Awesome. And we'll get you all your contact and info stuff at the end here.
Cool.
And you're also the host of the Real Business Connections podcast.
That's right.
So it sounds like you're doing some stuff here, Ben.
You're gonna be on my show.
I can't wait. I can't wait to dive into the real world of business. But today, what I want to talk about is a couple of things that I'd never heard about. And you taught me some things as you were kind of outlining some ideas you might have wanted to talk about today. And the first thing, and I'm curious if you remember saying this one, so this will be a good starting point. You said, when you're born, you look like your parents. When you die, you look like your choices. I've never heard that. And I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. So talk to me a little bit about that line, Ben.
Yeah. Say it again for the audience at home. I like the way you say it.
When you're born, you look like your parents. When you die, you look like your choices.
And what else is there to talk about? I think it's crystal clear. Like, we physically look like our parents, and even as we're raised, we are going to look like our environment. We are going to look like the people around us. We are going to come from different societal statuses, and we're going to be different genders, and we're going to have different lives. But at the end of the day, like at some point, in Judaism, just as random, 13. I'm mentioning Judaism because I was just at a bat mitzvah for my cousin. I've got the water thing here in front of me. What do you call one of these? Oh my God, what do you call one of these
Oh,
babies?
like a thermos,
A thermos.
a
There we go. I
thermos,
got the thermos in
or
front
a
of me.
water thingy. It kind of counts too.
Traditionally in Judaism, they say you become a man or a woman at 13, which is very
Hmm.
young. And even
Wow.
in the sermon the rabbi gave to my 13-year-old cousin, he's like, until this day, all your mistakes were your parents' fault. After this day, no pressure. All your mistakes are going to be your fault because you're growing. You're becoming a woman. And part of that, this was literally my rabbi just like a week ago. Not my rabbi, a rabbi at this bar mitzvah a week ago in Colorado saying this. And I'm like, it's brilliant because at the end of the day, like, you are born into an environment, a certain
Mhm.
culture. But what decisions do you make with the body given, with the opportunity given, with the life given? What choices do you make? When you're 55,
Mhm.
when you're 65, when you're 75, when you're 95 on your deathbed, Are you going to be talking about the way now you there's nothing wrong with this. I've went through traumas that I've had to unpack. But are you going to be 95 complaining about the way your dad treated you when you were 8?
Mm.
If so, like, are you going to play a victim your whole life? And I don't encourage that. I think at
Mhm.
the end of the day, when you're born, you're going to look like your environment. You're going to look like your parents.
Mhm.
When you die, you're going to look like your choices. This is sad, but like the longevity of your life, the happiness in your life, the fruitfulness of your life isn't going to be an outside environment. It's going to be an inner decision.
Mm.
If I pass away at 45 from liver disease, it's probably my fault.
Mm.
And it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, but it's just factual.
Yeah. And I think too, the important piece you mentioned there was actually taking the blame that it's your fault, right? And putting that ego aside where it's not like, oh, I have liver disease because my dad, you know, taught me about drinking when I was 18 years old. It's like, no, you then made more choices in that area, right? Right. And then that then created who you are today. Right. And I think the putting the ego aside, the understanding, all right, I'm the one who's ultimately in charge of my life. This is on me. I'm not the victim of my life. I'm the victor of my life. And one of the things I love to say is life happens for us, not to us. Right. And so one of the things that kind of popped into my head as we were talking about choices was I'm curious, Ben, what's some of the best choices that you've ever made?
Mm. And I like the for us, not to us line,
Hmm.
but I think both happens
Hmm.
because things happen out of our control, but we still get to decide where we go with it.
Hmm.
So like best decisions I've made, that's a tough question to answer, but like I grew up with an alcoholic father that died in his mid 50s from alcoholism, and my mom had multiple sclerosis, which was a neurological disorder, and she really depreciated mentally and physically way quicker than most people would. And my brother, zero fault to his own, had diabetes at a very young age.
Hmm.
So my household was like kind of plagued with a little bit of struggle.
Hmm.
I don't want to oversell it. Like I
Yeah.
had a good life, but it was a struggle. Um, and I remember even one time just at breakfast, we're sitting there at, brunch, and everybody's slumped over and hunched over.
Hmm.
Now, granted, I was the shortest boy in my class,
Hmm.
and I'm hunched over. And my family, I didn't know what posture was. I didn't know that eye contact was important. I didn't know how to make eye contact. I was literally the smallest boy, and I would
Hmm.
make myself smaller. And it wasn't until about high school that I started to realize that I had a choice.
Hmm.
That do I make the best eye contact? No. Do I slouch? Yes. Am I in the best shape? No. But what can I start doing to change my future?
Hmm.
And, I picked up a couple personal growth books.
Hmm.
One of the biggest ones was The Miracle Morning,
Hmm.
which kind of helped me develop a morning routine for success.
Hmm.
And then as I did this morning routine every single day, I gained more confidence in myself. I
Hmm.
was able to be more present. I remember it's so silly and dumb, but my friend like complimented my posture, and I had never heard that before.
Hmm.
But it was just making the decision to take these little habits to not be like, oh, this is the way I'm gonna like clearly I was not happy with the route I was going.
Hmm.
So I decided to initiate habits like meditation, like affirmations and visualization and exercise and reading and drinking enough water and journaling. Once I started doing that stuff, all the bad habits, is it still in me? Yeah,
Hmm.
but I'm not defined by them anymore.
Mm. And you're making a different choice,
Exactly. It was the
right?
decision.
Right. It
And
was that decision.
and that's why I kind of break like some of the like my brother getting diabetes didn't happen for him, I don't think. But he still gets to make the decision from there.
Hmm.
You said it.
Yeah.
Am I a victim or am I a victor?
Yeah. And so I'm glad you said that because I think I say that term with the expectation that I'm going to look at that as I'm a victor.
Mm.
right? And maybe some people don't look at that as like the diabetes thing, right? It's a great example. How is me getting diabetes life happening for me? Well, it's going to take a little bit of exploration to really figure out how can this actually be something that could serve the world,
Mm.
right? Like, how is this really going to change my behavior to the point where, you know what, I am the victor of this, right? And I'm going to figure out how to be a example to other people who might have diabetes on how to live your life still with happiness and joy and success, right?
It can be a gift.
Yeah.
Sometimes gifts look like turds.
Oh yeah. Got to clean them off.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you can Eric Sue said this on my podcast. You can polish a turd and it's still a turd.
Hmm.
So some things are just bad,
Yeah.
but a lot of times you just need to chip away the
Hmm.
turd and then you've got a freaking golden ring.
Hmm.
It
Yep.
just looked like a turd from the outside. You had to chip off the turd and you've got a ring under there.
Yeah.
I've never said that, but I hope that makes sense.
Well, I mean, it made sense in my head. I hope it made sense to anybody listening to it. But we actually have an exercise that we do where we walk people through. We say, all right, I want you to think about a moment in your life that you have up to this point labeled as negative,
Mm,
right? It hurt you. It was bad. And then we ask them, we say, what is a possible gift or an opportunity that's actually come out of that event? And it's one of those questions where it's like, all right, I need like a couple hours to maybe answer this question to like really think through what is something good that kind of came out of it. And initially, I remember when we actually would ask people this, we would ask them it right on the spot. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I think this is too beefy of a question just to throw at somebody. I said, I think we need to preload this like a couple days in advance. And then the results
mm,
that we were getting were much better because people had some time to actually think through those things because it is difficult when when life does serve us a turd, right? And we got to figure out where's the ring, right? How do I figure out, what is the gift or the opportunity in this? And I think this is kind of an interesting question to ask you, Ben. Have you ever experienced something like that where you initially viewed life giving you something hard or something negative that ended up turning into a really cool gift or an opportunity?
yeah, sure, man. It's almost cliche by now, but
Mm,
luckily, COVID did that for me because it's been long enough. Come put me in handcuffs if you
mhm,
want, but I would self-prescribe myself Xanax and take a Xanax every Monday morning
mhm,
to get through meetings at my corporate job.
mhm,
And had a drinking problem at the time, and I was kind of a hot mess, to be honest with you.
mhm,
But I worked on the 14th floor of a beautiful building in the heart of the city. It
mhm,
was a great view, suit and tie every single day. I was a sales executive. I made it, but I was suppressing all this anxiety because my body and mind were falling apart because I was actually miserable. I wasn't man enough to admit it. And when COVID hit, I got let go from that job.
mhm,
And it's like everything I've built up to is now gone. The biggest thing for me was my entire book of business. And part of having a book of business is reoccurring income. And
mhm,
it's hard to build that book of business and gain that reoccurring income, but it creates security and, in theory, limitless potential to continue to grow. All that was stripped from me. And it was in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. So, yeah, I don't have to redo what COVID was, but it was very stressful, very difficult. But from that turd was the seed that built the podcast and the business and the
mhm,
entrepreneurial journey that nowadays I guess you could say I'm an accidental entrepreneur
mhm,
because if that furlough didn't occur and if that pandemic didn't occur, I quite possibly would have still been in that role, taking that same Xanax every Monday morning. And if I do that over a long enough time horizon,
mhm,
we talked about choices, like I probably wouldn't live a good life.
mm. One of the things, so first off, thank you for sharing that, right? I think there's a lot of people who can think about like from like a professional standpoint, right? Like I'm actually my turd to gift moment is very similar to yours. I had I had a job I loved and I was fired from it in a really interesting way. And I wasn't taking Xanax, but I was partying a lot. I was drinking a lot and I was going on social media actively every day and just
Mm,
comparing myself to others. And I think that was the worst amount of mental consumption that I probably could have done. And I kind of worked myself into this really, really nasty place mentally. And one of the things that you said that I think is so powerful to actually have the courage to say this is you said, I finally became man enough to admit it. And I think that is complete counterintuitive to the way that we view being a man today, right? Hey, I need some help with this, right?
mm,
You were man enough to actually say, like, I need to make a change, right? What would you say the misconception is around being man enough to admit when you need some help?
the misconception. Damn, that's a deep question, my friend.
Right? Something I
It
personally have struggled with. So, I mean, I could use some help with it.
Well, it's funny because I have a high capacity to rationalize,
Hmm.
and I was in a sales role for a marketing company. I have a marketing background. I was consuming a lot of bad content. I don't
Hmm.
want to put anybody on blast, but a lot of like the hard close,
Hmm.
aggressive, like basically selling ice to an Eskimo, selling,
Yeah.
a water bottle to a drowning person, which is freaking stupid.
Hmm.
Why would you ever do that? But that was like my mentality
Hmm.
that I could rationalize anything and I could sell anything. So my girlfriend was literally saying like, you're miserable at this job. She still says it today, like, I'm so happy this happened to you. You were so freaking miserable. But I wouldn't I wouldn't want to show that.
Hmm.
I would rationalize and I would sell it like, listen, I'm literally at the bottom of the ladder I'm climbing and I'm already looking good. I'm already feeling good. I had a great sales trainer. I have an awesome sales trainer and mentor. Like, it's not as bad as you think.
Hmm.
And I think part of it is just not wanting to be wrong and not wanting to look weak. So you find yourself in a circumstance that, in theory, you could change, but to change that circumstance and leave is a very heavy lift that most people don't want to make. And honestly, you could hurt yourself making that lift. So you rationalize yourself deeper into a hole because you don't want to look weak. The
Hmm.
why behind that, I don't quite know, but clearly it's a problem.
Yeah. And so as you were walking through that, my own personal belief about it is the feeling of trying to avoid feeling being weak, or at
Mm,
least being perceived as weak. And I think there comes, I think the next follow-up question is, well, what is your perception of being weak? Right? Like what does it mean to actually be weak? Well, maybe we could say, hey, you're weak if you don't admit you need some help, right?
mm-hmm,
You try to put on that surface level, oh, I'm good, right? Whether you're a man or a woman, right? That I don't think that really matters, right? I'm good. I got it all under control. Yet internally, you're like, I'm actually really struggling,
mm,
and I could really use some help. And now we're shifting that typical belief of, oh, we have to be strong, we have to have it all together. When it's like, well, if you feel like you could actually use a little bit of assistance or some guidance, why not go look for it? Like what could happen? Right? What's the best thing that could actually happen? Right. So
yeah.
I think there's a lot of value there.
My good buddy and mentor Brian Boger talks about having a soft front and a strong spine.
Mm.
So strong-willed, hard to move, super compassionate,
Mhm.
loving, caring, leader, pays attention. Like, I think weakness is being so guarded that like you're disconnected and trying to fight everybody and like you're
Mhm.
you're like you're not in a good mental place. Like,
Mhm.
strength often comes from clarity that like this is just not where I want to be and I'm going to make the decision to do something. So I don't know if there's a right or wrong. I think the true essence is clarity though.
Mhm.
Like, what do you want? You talked about social media. I had the
Mhm.
same problem as well.
Mhm.
if I were to document my life and I do it from the right angle,
Hmm.
I'd look like I was kicking ass, bro. And everybody online wants to look this certain way, but like, is that clarity? Is this what I want?
Hmm.
Am I actually kicking butt right now? So I
Hmm.
think really the strength comes from clarity because without the clarity, it's hard to know what choices to make.
Yes. And I'm happy you said that because that's actually what I've realized helps me make the most decisions in the fastest, most efficient ways when I actually have clarity about what I actually want.
Mm,
Right. Like if I define it and I'm like, okay, here's what I want. It's like, cool. Like let's take an immediate action to go get that thing now because I know what I kind of want. Right. And when we don't have that clarity, and I think, I mean, what are your thoughts about this? Do you think a lot of people in this world today, and maybe there's even a certain demographic of people struggle with that clarity aspect of their life?
yes. A unanimous. Yeah, I don't know
Mhm.
the metrics, but I'd
Mhm.
say over 95%.
Really?
I think it's a serious worldwide issue that's elevated through social media because people don't know what they want anymore. It's
Hmm.
just what's been fed to them.
Mm. Yeah, it's like what they it's what they see online is what they want, right? So
Yep.
if I see a lot of cooking things, I'm gonna be like, oh, I want to get really good at cooking. It's like, do I really want to get good at cooking?
When it's I talk about it all the time in marketing. The best way to market something is through social proof.
Hmm.
Because if everybody wants it, if successful people have taken this program and I want to be successful, it's a straight line there. Like
Hmm.
if successful people are doing it and I want to be successful, if I do it, I'll be successful. And the logic's there. But that's successful. I don't know. Like I could try to be a NBA player, but I could take every course in the world. I'm never going to be an NBA player. Maybe that's a limiting belief. I
Hmm.
don't think Ben at 5'8" is ever going to make the NBA. I'm in my 30s now, right? So it's like, but
Don't
we
count yourself
see,
out, Ben.
I guess we'll see, man. But, we see what other people are doing, and then we define our goals around them rather than defining them around what we actually want.
Hmm. As you were talking through that too, you mentioned kind of like success, right? In this path of success. And one of the things you had mentioned in the form that I had you fill out was about the true key in success. The true key is to judge success based upon a long enough time horizon, right? And so, how do we do a better job of avoiding our need for instant gratification?
Mm. I mean, I love instant gratification. I'm all
Me
about
too.
small. I'm all about small wins. I
Hmm.
think so. Let's take a step back. So I
Hmm.
think there's a belief that's good, but there's a lot of toxicity behind it. Is fake it until you make it.
Hmm.
And the reason I don't like that, it's a great rhyme, but why am I going to fake it?
Hmm.
Like I can't fake it until I make it in the gym. Like I can't pretend I'm healthy but then eat unhealthy stuff. Like I don't want to be a fake. I want to
Hmm.
embody what's required to be that person. So instead of fake it till you make it, I like to say be it until you become it. So the instant gratification is what do I want long term? Well, what on a long term time horizon am I looking for? And then you begin with the end in mind and you just work backwards. If I were this person, what would this person do day by day? And then you just do what that person does day by day. You be it and then you become it. And then the funny thing is, you never actually had to like fake anything because you were that person. You
Yeah.
had that muscle, like you talk about, like you
Hmm.
had the muscle, you just weren't working it. So you start working the muscle, you start working the mind, and then you become the person that you always were, that you're envisioning through the daily habits. But you need to look at a long time horizon because you might not see returns right away.
Hmm.
And you might wonder, is this working? But if it works, I just need to work it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the challenge, right? Is it's like, hey, I want to see a result
Mm-hmm.
because that makes me feel like the time is worth it and the effort is worth it. And me going into fear is worth it, right? It's like, hey, it's like I don't want to feel uncomfortable and anxious if it's not going to reward me, right? And I think it's that fear of like, oh my God, what if I do all these uncomfortable things and I don't get rewarded?
It's a tough one. I always say, what's the worst that could happen?
Hmm.
So I invest in taking care of my body and I want to lose 10 pounds, but I only lose 4.
Hmm.
My end state is failure. I didn't lose 10 pounds,
Hmm.
but I also did lose 4. And if
Hmm.
you really look at the big picture, I probably lost 6, 7 pounds of fat and I put on a couple pounds of muscle. So
Hmm.
what's the worst that could happen? I think the problem is knowing what to follow, because if you run really fast in the wrong direction, you're still going to have to turn around and run back. Now, granted, what's the worst that could happen? You turn around and run back. So
Hmm.
take risks.
Yeah.
Run in the wrong direction, possibly. You're going to have to turn around and take back. But I think the smartest people figure out what other successful people are doing in the specific area. They need clarity,
Hmm.
not the Instagram person that popped up on your feed. Clarity on what I want. Now let's figure out who has what I want. Then what does it take to get there? And then we work towards there. And even if we don't reach the results that we were planning on, what's the worst that could happen? We're still farther along.
Hmm.
And a lot of times we don't reach the results we are planning on, but we're again not looking at a long enough time horizon. We've judged our results on the first 6 months when we don't realize that 6 years down the road, we're going to be a completely different human being. And
Hmm.
this 6 months was just the hump we had to get through to get to that next level.
And along those 6 months, you probably acquired some skills, right?
Oh, yeah.
You definitely acquired some experience, and ultimately, you are becoming the asset, right? You are becoming the thing that becomes valuable, right? Like we like I've heard, right? We don't buy from companies, we buy from people, right? Like I want to work with people who I like, right? And things like that. So along those lines, even if the results aren't necessarily exactly what I wanted, I developed myself along that journey, right? Along that way. And even the uncomfortable decisions I made or the uncomfortable things that I did, I built evidence that I can do those things.
Right.
Right. So then when they come up again, it's like, hey, I got 6 months of evidence that I've been doing this thing. It's like I got this now. Right. And so then you almost like make the time even faster. Right. So I love that idea. And one of the things too you had mentioned was about your body. And you mentioned earlier you just started your fitness journey back up about a year ago or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How's it going?
It's awesome, man.
It's
You
awesome.
kind of, as of this week, it's not great because I was just on vacation,
Mhm.
but I'm back at it.
That's awesome. So what I'm just curious, what was your reasoning to kind of kickstart that back up?
And we won't go deep into morning routines if you want
Hmm.
to, unless you want to, but silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing, or writing. That's Savers. It's from the Miracle Morning.
Hmm.
Never in my life, I'm just being transparent. Never in my life have I been able to fill all of those buckets completely.
Hmm.
Like my meditation practice will be like a breath or two. Like I'll do box breathing for 10
Hmm.
seconds. My journal, sometimes I won't do it, sometimes I will. But I put together the strong morning routine where I did all these things: silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing every single day.
Hmm.
But I was lying because exercise wasn't happening.
Hmm.
What would happen to check the exercise box is I would have a jump rope. I would count to about 250, which isn't bad. I would do 250 jumps on the
Hmm.
jump rope, take me about a minute. And then some days, I mean, I work on a computer, I'm a
Hmm.
marketer. Like some days I literally would work from bed for 15 hours. And the only exercise I got was that 45 seconds to 60 seconds of jump rope.
Hmm.
So that bucket was struggling, and you talked
Hmm.
about looking the part. And it's
Hmm.
not even just looking the part, it's feeling the part. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have the clarity that I could have.
Mhm.
I didn't look good. I didn't feel good about myself.
Mhm.
And it's like enough's enough. Like I'm just lying to myself if I blame somebody else. Like the
Mhm.
reason I don't look good or feel good is because that exercise bucket's getting neglected.
Mhm.
And luckily I had developed enough income that I could hire a trainer, but
Mhm.
you don't need to. You can find a buddy, just go to a
Mhm.
gym. Freaking Planet Fitness is $10 a month and they're not going to judge you at all. So you can do whatever you want, but like I needed to hire someone because I wanted it to hurt. I
Mhm.
wanted someone who is way better at that category. We talked about this. The
Mhm.
way to
Yeah.
get the results is just look at someone who's got it and
Mhm.
follow their formula. So I wanted to hire someone who's literally like a professional bodybuilder, like competes, looks great, completely natural,
Mhm.
um, and ultimately spend money on it. So it hurt a little bit, hold me accountable,
Mhm.
and then I got results really quickly.
Mhm.
When
Oh yeah.
the showing up to the gym here and there with a buddy wasn't working,
Mhm.
I just had to take drastic action and it helped a lot. And then I look better, I feel better. And then when I'm talking about like mindset, which I'm not a mindset expert, I'm not a fitness expert, when I talk about any of this stuff, at least I have certainty that I'm doing the stuff.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about something I'm not currently doing. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest causes of imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
finding yourself in situations where you're talking about something that's actually out of alignment
Mm.
with what you're doing. So you have to speak the words, but you know internally that you're not that person.
Mhm.
That would make you feel like an imposter. It made me feel like an imposter, bro.
Oh yeah. And I've felt that before too, where I've started to talk about something and in the back of my head I'm like, I really don't know what I'm actually talking about right now. So I need to like stop because I don't feel good about myself right now. Um, but I think a couple of things. One, I want to commend you on the honesty that you treated yourself with,
Hmm.
right? With, hey, I'm doing the jump rope and telling yourself that's not cutting it, right? Because there are probably people who are like, no, I did the jump rope today. I'm good.
Yeah, I checked the box.
Right. I checked the box, right? The box
Yeah.
has been completed. I'm good. And you deep down knew that that was not checking the box. And there's something about the fact that no one knew that you were, jumping rope, right? Except for the people who are going to listen to this, right? Like no one knew that it was like it was your thing to do your 45 seconds of jump rope and then check your box. Like you didn't have to change that, right? Yet that was your decision to do it. And I think when people talk about like I love talking about discipline and I love talking about consistency. Those are my two favorite topics to talk about. Discipline is a very lonely game.
Mm.
It's a very quiet, cold, in the shadows game. It literally almost gets me emotional talking about it because of how like I'm thinking about like the times in my life where it's like nobody's here to push me, nobody's here to tell me to get up, nobody's here to tell me to eat this or do that, and it's like I'm just doing it with nobody ever finding out about it, right? And that's what you did, right? And you made that decision, you made that change, and so I think that's really cool, Ben.
Do you know Anthony Trucks by chance?
I do. I actually literally met him like 2 weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks ago on a mastermind call.
Perfect.
Yes.
You gotta have him on the podcast. And I only shout out
Mhm.
Anthony Trucks because he is NFL player,
Mhm.
ex-American Ninja Warrior, but he talks about dark work.
Yeah.
And it's what you do in the dark when no one sees you and no one's watching that actually helps you shine in the light. It's
Mhm.
actually what we're doing in that dark moment where it's just me and me, myself, and the
Yeah.
task
Yep.
is actually what helps you achieve once you're in the limelight.
Mhm.
And you can tell who's doing that dark work and who's not
Mhm.
simply from their performance once the light's on them.
Yeah. Yeah, I gave a talk in St. Pete a couple months ago, kind of like my first keynote talk, you could say, and I loved it. I had a great time with it, and I practiced the talk 45 times
Hmm.
before I went and gave it, and it was about a half an hour talk, so it was like a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And
20
gave the
to
time.
40 hours probably at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. It was kind of like a full day of just repetition. And
Oh.
I was very comfortable talking in front of everybody. I really enjoyed the talk. And at the end, I had a couple people come up to me and they were like, "Is that the first time you've ever given that talk?" And I was like, and in my head I went, "No, I've done it 45 times."
Oh.
Right? That was what I said in my head. And so I said, "Yeah, this is the first time I've done it kind of like publicly." And so my business partner, he said, "The next time someone asks you that question, he goes, think about how you really want to answer it." And I was like, all right. I was like, I could say, yeah, I've actually done this, 50 plus times now because I did it another time and I practiced it some more. But it was those dark days, right? The things that my roommate was probably like, dude, you're still practicing that freaking that freaking presentation. I'm like, yeah, I am. So, but yeah, it's those dark days. So,
Can I
um,
riff on that real
yeah,
quick?
yeah,
Because
definitely.
something similar happened to me. I had my first big keynote in
Mhm.
Las Vegas, and literally, man, I blacked out. Like I was nervous. Like it just flew out of me. And afterwards, multiple people said, like, I know there's a lot of big speakers here, but you were my favorite. I really appreciated your presentation. And someone asked me, like, how are you so confident on stage? And I'm like, one, I just blacked out, so I don't think I was that confident. Two, if you were to put me on stage and I had to talk about, let's say, figure skating, I would
Mhm.
look like a freaking idiot. The
Mhm.
confidence comes from the competency.
Mhm.
I'm talking about something that, granted, I have slides and I have stories and I have things
Mhm.
prepared, which is going to make for a better presentation. But I can get on that stage and talk about, the things that I'm competent in all day. Like
Mhm.
I was talking about podcasting and marketing and LinkedIn and stuff. It's like the confidence comes from the competency, but the competency comes from the work you did behind the
Mhm.
scenes.
Yeah. And so just curious, what hours wise, how many hours behind the scenes were put into that?
I don't know. I didn't count.
You didn't
Here's
count?
the thing. Here's the thing. I wish I could give you a good answer. I could
Mhm.
kind of fabricate one, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I'm 32. I was 32 when I gave that
Mhm.
keynote. 32 years went into that.
Mm, I like that.
Understanding psychology, being
Mhm.
a music guy who started a podcast. Like I talked about things that were very new, a lot of nuanced skills stacked together will make you look like a genius, but it's
Mhm.
really just stacking your life journey together. Like I learned about psychology, I learned about sales, I learned about marketing, I learned about public speaking, I learned about
Mhm.
podcasting, I learned about LinkedIn. And I'm just going to shove all this, I'm not going to tell you I'm doing it, but I'm going to shove all this life data into one presentation so no one on earth can give the same presentation as me because it's me giving it.
Mm.
And I'm competent because this is something that I've been doing for, podcast and marketing for 10 years. And then life experience is just like a constant evolution. So I'm getting very existential. I'll shut up, but it's like my entire life prepared me for that keynote. But guess
Mhm.
what happens on my next keynote? My entire life prepared me for that next one as well.
Mhm.
Like you just keep on leveling up, like new level, new devil. You're just going to keep getting better. But it's not like the 20 hours I put in practicing. It's what led me up to even getting the gig
Mhm.
booked on my calendar that to start practicing for that people don't realize. Like
Mhm.
you don't get, you don't it doesn't come out of thin air. You
Yeah.
work your way, and then the opportunities come to you. And then, if you're doing the work, you succeed at the opportunity, and then more opportunities come to you. Again, a little existential, but it's literally the way the world works. If you
Yeah.
put in the effort, you get the results. When you get the results, you get rewarded with more opportunity.
Mm. That just fired me up, Ben.
That makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, it totally does. And I think it plays into what we were talking to a little bit off air of, right? Working harder before you work smarter,
Yeah.
right? It's like put in the effort first and just work on some things and take a little bit of pride in it and have a little bit of
Mm.
passion in it, right? And then have some skin in the game. So, um, awesome. Ben, I got one more question for you, but before we get to it, where can everybody find you?
Yeah. So, you're about to be on my podcast.
Yes, can't wait.
So, wherever you found this, type in Real Business Connections in YouTube, any podcast app, or just Google it, Real Business Connections. And if you subscribe to my show, you can catch DJ on my show as well, wherever you found this. But before you do that, show some love. Hit 5 stars on this baby because none
Mm.
of this would be possible without our amazing host. So hit 5 stars on this baby first. Hit a like, a thumbs up, whatever you want to call it, and then just type in real business connections.
Oh, Ben, you're gonna make me blush. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I don't, that's another thing. We can go on a long tangent. I
Mhm.
won't, but the amount of work that goes into you hosting this show, it's not beyond me because I do some of that work
Mhm.
myself. It's not easy. It's a heavy lift, and you're doing
Mhm.
a great job. So, as the listener who's getting this value for free, like, come on, man, like, show some love. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Show some love. That'll be the clip that we post. It'll just be it'll just be like show some love. Come on,
show
guys.
some love, man.
All right, so last question that I wanted to hit on here. What is one idea that has helped you live a smarter and stronger life?
Ooh, one idea for a smarter, stronger life. Let me grab this. So I have a keychain. Jingle it for the audience,
I
but
was
I have
about
a
to say, yeah.
keychain, and it says there is no key.
Wow.
And the I like to be tongue in cheek. It's a keychain. It says there is no key, but the concept is I don't think there's one individual magic pill key to success.
Mm.
It's a combination lock. And similar to a padlock at the gym, we each have our own unique combination. Similar to how they take your fingerprint when you get in trouble, you
Mhm.
have a unique fingerprint. So once I realized that there wasn't one individual magic pill, one size fits all solution for every problem, curiosity kicks in. And it's like, what is my combination? Who is the combination of mentors I need to take me to the next level? What is the combination of life experiences and skills that I've developed that makes me uniquely qualified to serve the person I used to be and then anyone who needs help in those areas? What is my combination? We talked about clarity and a lot of people struggling with it. It's like finding our own combination is a lifelong journey. And once I realized that there wasn't a key to success, it was a combination lock. It
Mhm.
was a switch flick that I just started to be more curious.
Mm.
What can I learn from this person? What digit do they have that I don't? And how can I get some of that digit, if
Mhm.
that makes sense?
Ben, I am so happy you said that because that is one of our core values at Acres of Diamonds is, and I don't think we define it exactly as curiosity, but it's this idea of staying curious, right? Where, hey, I might not have all the answers. I know I don't have all the answers, right? And this other person has a digit or has something that I might not see right off the bat, right? And it might take a little bit of time and exercising that curiosity to ultimately find it.
Boom. And once you find it, that's when you start unlocking stuff.
Hmm. Yeah,
Once you
that's when the
find the right
keys.
combination.
That's when the keys start to come into play.
Exactly. You find the right digits, you start unlocking. And
Hmm.
this is like a life journey, but it's in all aspects of life.
Hmm.
Like what is my sales combination? What is my fitness combination? What is my family and social bond combination?
Hmm.
Like I feel like someone can give you a program, but at the end of the day, your playbook's going to look different. And
Hmm.
it's just that's the part of the beauty. You get to create your own playbook. But if we just I'm on a tangent, but I promise it
I
makes
love
sense.
it. I love it.
We talked a lot about like following what works.
Hmm.
Like you want to follow what works, but at some point you need to learn how to audible because what works for Alex or Mosey or what works for DJ or like any of these people will work to us to an extent, but at some point we need to put our own unique spin on it. And that's where your own combination comes into play. And the
Hmm.
people you follow is also like what works for Alex or Mosey might not work for me. I might prefer listening to Brene Brown. Like it's
Hmm.
we get to choose.
Hmm.
And I guess that's the one most important thing that I've learned.
That's a great piece of coaching right there too as well because I think there are so many mentors out there that we can listen to and that can be overwhelming, right? Like I've had sometimes where I've wanted to listen to 15, 20 people and then they end up actually contradicting each other.
Mm.
So then I'm like, wait a
Me
second.
too.
Like, right, well, who do I actually listen to? So, pick the 1 to 3 that you really resonate with and follow them, right? And learn from them and stay curious with them.
Yeah, it's like, how am I supposed to meditate but grind,
Yeah,
wake up at 4 a.m. and work 18 hours, but then have a happy social life? Like, they all don't work together.
exactly. That's what happens if you mix like Joe Dispenza with like Jocko Willink. You're going to be trying to wake up at 4 a.m. and meditate as soon as you get out of bed, and it's going to be it's going to be a mess.
Oh man, we could go all day on that
We
one.
could. So, well, Ben, I want to say thank you so much for your time today and all of the topics that we talked about. I really appreciate it, man. So, thank you.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
You're welcome. I'm excited to jump onto your podcast too.
All right, let's go do it.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. As Ben mentioned, give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. We're always super grateful of that. And until next time, keep doing hard things through both mental and physical fitness. And we'll talk to you guys soon.